Haunted Cosmos. Sinister discovery reveals Planet 9's prime candidate in a forbidden location. The night air felt thick with dread, as if every breath Sarah took was laced with shadows. The peeling paint of her suburban home mirrored her soul, worn down by late shifts and relentless bills. She stumbled home from the diner, exhaustion weighing her down, her heart racing from another night of serving plates to people who barely looked her way. But tonight something caught her eye, a tattered astrophysics textbook lying in the dirt, neglected like her dreams. She picked it up, feeling a strange pull. What secrets lay within those pages? It felt heavier than it should be. The neighborhood was cursed with whispers of odd disappearances, and now a part of her wondered if this textbook was linked. She couldn't shake off the feeling that it was watching her, its cover peeling like the walls of her home. Later, her son Tommy, a wide-eyed boy full of fascination for UFOs, found the book. "Mom! Look! There are symbols!" he shouted, pointing at an etching peeking from the yellowing pages. A chill crept up Sarah's spine. The whispers began, then the whispers of watchers, spoken quietly between the children. Shadows danced on their bedroom walls, deep and twisting, as if trying to tell stories of things lurking outside. With a heart pounding like a war drum, Sarah approached the principal the next day. "My children are hearing things," she confessed, voice trembling. He laughed it off. Stormy clouds gathered over her confidence. "Just kids' imaginations run wild, Sarah." Was she imagining it all, or was there something sinister lurking beneath the surface? Days turned to nights, and the unease became another ghost in their home. The shadows grew bolder, and the watchers were calling, pulling her children toward the woods bordering their backyard. Sarah fought to keep panic at bay, but then one evening they vanished. Her whole world crumbled in that moment. Tommy's laughter became an echo that taunted her through the trees. "Where are you?" she screamed into the thickening darkness, her voice cracking. The trees loomed like ancient giants, their gnarled fingers reaching down to snatch any warmth left in her heart. The air grew heavy, and whispers twisted around her, a cacophony of dread. Could the watchers feasting on the fears of children be real? Was it too late for her to save them? She stumbled further into the woods, dread pooling in her stomach like a stone. Each crack underfoot felt like a desperate cry. Suddenly, shapes swung in the moonlight before her. She wasn't alone. Glimpses of shadows emerged, and symbols carved into the trunks, identical to those in the textbook, seemed to pulse with an eerie glow. The flicker of light was near, beckoning her with a siren's call. But with each step deeper into the forest, the whispers grew louder and more sinister, clawing at her soul, promising things better left unsaid. She had broken the silence, but what had she awakened? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the shadows shifted around her, the air thickened painfully and electric hum spiraled in her ears. Fear trembled in her hands as she fought to approach the flickering light. The darkness pressed closer, revealing grotesque figures moving just beyond her sight, their eyes glinting with a hunger that promised only horror. Sarah's heart raced, drowning in terror. What had she stirred, and what awaited as she sank deeper into the heart of the forbidden? A sharp gasp shattered the stillness in the woods. Sarah froze, her breath hitching in her throat as the shadows coalesced into forms she couldn't comprehend. The light ahead pulsed, throbbing with an unsettling rhythm, a heartbeat that seemed to beckon her in. Each step felt heavy, like wading through a mire of thick, dark syrup. Shadows swirled around her ankles, wrapping tighter with every beat of her racing heart. "Tommy!" she called again, desperation bleeding into her voice. The whispers around her thickened, morphing into taunting echoes of her son's laughter. It clawed at her sanity, a cruel mimicry that made her want to scream. She pressed forward through the grasping branches, feeling them scratch against her skin like spectral fingers. Then she hit a clearing, and the atmosphere shifted. The air grew colder, a breath of ice that nipped at her exposed skin. In the center of the clearing was a stone altar covered in those same pulsating symbols glowing now with a sickly green light. Crazy thoughts tumbled through her mind. Was this a place for rituals? Was this where the Watchers conducted their dark feasts? "Mommy?" came a small voice from the gloom, fragile and distant. "Tommy!" She turned wildly, eyes darting through the deep shadows. Hope surged, igniting a spark in her chest. "Where are you?" The voice answered again, closer but breaking, strained. It echoed against the stone, reverberating through her bones. "Mommy, help!" She ran toward the sound, panic threading through her limbs. Branches thrashed against her face, but she didn't care. She pushed through the darkness, ever closer to her son's voice. The whispers escalated, a chaotic chorus spiraling around her, almost mocking her urgency. But in that moment of frantic conviction, reality warped. The altar glowed brighter, blinding her momentarily. And then, in that short, suffocating blink, the clearing twisted, and the shadows screamed. A figure wavered into existence, a childlike silhouette, flickering like a faulty light bulb. It beckoned her closer with an outstretched hand, but something about that gesture felt wrong, twisted, unnatural. "Tommy!" she screamed, and the figure froze. The shadows around it pulsated, glowing darkly. A whispering panic filled the air. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the figure unraveled into the shadows, leaving nothing behind but a lingering echo of fear. "No, no!" Sarah cried, heart racing as the pressing whispers surged, drowning her in despair. She took a trembling step back, realizing her thoughts were swirling a disorienting dance of dread. Were her children truly here, or were they mere reflections of what the Watchers fed on? The altar pulsed again, and memory flashed. The symbols scribbled across the battered pages of that textbook clawed at her mind. Hadn't it spoken of ancient entities, of sacrifices and children as fears as sustenance? And then, like a jolt of lightning, she understood. This wasn't just her fight. It was a ritual, and if the entity held control over her children, it would be unstoppable. With renewed resolve, Sarah lunged toward the altar, prepared to confront the darkness. But the whispers reached a deafening crescendo, as a weight pressed down on her, a fog of despair that threatened to choke her. Grasping the edge of the altar, she glanced back at the encroaching shadows, a chilling thought piercing through the madness. If the Watchers were feeding off fear, could she turn the tide? Could she offer her own fear to save her children? But the forest seemed to stretch out, its shadows elongating and twisting, the line between savior and victim beginning to blur. "Not yet!" A voice hissed from the dark, icy and sinister. She hesitated, fear gripping her heart. Had she just unleashed something even worse? The shadows shifted as something colossal stirred in the depths. What had she awakened beneath the cursed earth? And were her children truly lost, or was part of them still fighting against the encroaching dark? There was no turning back now. Sarah steeled herself against the engulfing dread, ready to face whatever nightmare awaited just beyond the glow. But in that moment, she felt the cold touch of the unknown close in. And alone, she whispered to the night, "I will find you, Tommy, whatever it takes." A laugh echoed in the shadows, and from somewhere unfathomable, the Watchers promised her dread what awaited Sarah beyond the altar? Would she find her children, or was she destined to become just another wisp of fear lost in the night? Her grip tightened around the altar, fingers trembling against the cool, pulsating stone. The laughter echoed again, curling around her like icy fingers, sending chills down her spine. It was a sound both familiar and foreign, a bait designed to ensnare her senses. "Tommy, please!" she begged, her voice breaking under the weight of her terror. The darkness shifted again, swirling with a life of its own, revealing glimpses of other forms merging into the void. They were long and twisted, their movements chaotic, each step forward accompanied by the sounds of whispers all too eager to snatch her sanity away. Fear collided with desperation, and she understood if she lost herself now, the Watchers would claim everything precious to her. "Show yourself," she demanded, her own voice growing stark and unyielding. "If you want fear, I will give it to you." Shadows flickered, momentarily dissipating from around her, surprised by her defiance. The altar resonated with a deep hum beneath her fingertips, vibrating with the heartbeat of the curse lurking in the clearing. It was a sound that spoke of ancient dread of sacrifices past, and she suddenly felt drawn to the symbols etched in the stone. Desperation fueled her resolve. Maybe it was there, within that corrupted light, that she could find the key to saving her children. Sarah came the small voice again, closer this time, but still strained, still broken. Where was he? The sound twisted with doubt and fear, morphing into something like a whisper of wind. Mommy, help us! The altar throbbed in response, each pulse reverberating through her chest, flooding her with a sense of urgency. She stepped back, eyes darting through the encroaching shadows, searching for any sign of Tommy, of her daughter, of hope. It transformed into an almost palpable hunger, the shadows anticipating, waiting for her to falter, to despair. Where were they? Did they even exist in this warped abyss? The altar continued its sinister glow, and just as she felt the twinge of despair threaten to pull her under, an image flickered in the darkness, a face, framed by chaotic shadows, wide-eyed and terrified. It was him. Mommy! His voice fractured the dark, dragging her closer, urging her to reach for him. Tommy! Instinct propelled her forward. She stumbled, her breath hitting as she collided with something solid on the ground. Something warm, something soft. The fear of losing him propelled her onward. She demanded the shadows to part and let her through. But they were relentless. They lunged at her ankles, hissing, mocking her desperation. She gripped the altar tighter, her nails digging into its surface, almost losing her footing as the ground rocked beneath her. Faces leered from the darkness, reflections of her own fears, of parents unable to save their children, of mothers lost in shadows. Leave them alone! She screamed. For a heartbeat, the shadows paused. She felt a flicker of power coursing through her, a solemn mantra she didn't know she held. Fueled by raw determination, she began to chant the names of her children: Tommy, Lily. Each name cut through the air, the sounds ringing like bells, awakening something beneath the altar. The whispers shuddered, a sudden discord that shattered the tension. A low growl emanated, rumbling from deep within the earth, the darkness shifting in a frantic panic as if the shadows themselves were alive and terrified of her resolve. Stop her! Came a voice from the back, sharp and vicious. It cut through the night like a knife, and all at once, the shadows surged forward, swallowing what little light remained, a vortex of darkness charging at her. Sarah's heart hammered violently against her ribs. She could still hear her children calling out. Could she fight this? Could she hold on? No! She held back, the scream ripping from her throat. The world around her trembled dangerously, the altar vibrating with her furious energy. In that moment, she felt a fierce power, a chance to defy the Watchers, to wrestle her children from their grasp. As the shadows engulfed her, every muscle screamed. In protest, she held tight to the altar, whispering a desperate prayer into the storm. But something stirred, a looming presence rising from the depths. What would emerge? And could she confront the horrors that awaited her below, or would she succumb to the very darkness she sought to fight? The ground rumbled more violently now, the altar thrumming beneath her fingertips as if acknowledging the threat of what was to come. The shadows lunged at her, as if senses sharpened by their fear of her defiance. Panic clawed at Sarah's chest, a visceral instinct that made every hair on her body stand on end. Tommy! She shouted again, her voice slicing through the looming terror like a blade. She had to believe he was close. She had to. The twisted darkness seemed to bend, reshaping itself into grotesque silhouettes of late-night terrors, shadowy hands, claw-like fingers reaching for her, hungry for despair. But then, against the dark, a pulse of light broke through. It flickered like the remains of a dying star, illuminating a path. Sarah squinted, holding on to the glimmer as if it were a lifeline thrown into tumultuous waters. She turned, prepared to charge toward it, but a surge of darkness swept around her, trapping her in a fraying web of fear. Mommy! The whisper was louder now, more distinct, as if Tommy's spirit was fighting against the veil of nightmares that ensnared her. It pulled her like a marionette on strings, twisting her closer to the altar, closer to whatever was agitated beneath. Her heart screamed for her children, their names hung in the air like a chant, and she couldn't shake the sensation that they were both there and far away, trapped in the same moment of darkness, yet separated by an unfathomable void. With every ounce of strength, she inhaled deeply, gathering courage. The altar shuddered again, sending waves of energy into the air. Sarah pressed her palms against the stone, feeling the weight of generations behind her. Voices spiraled around her, screams, laughter, angry hisses, a cacophony that threatened to swallow her whole, but beneath it all, she found her resolve. She was not just a mother but a fighter, a survivor. Enough! She bellowed, and the force of her voice shattered the confined space, echoing back, louder, more powerful than she felt inside. The shadows hesitated, coiling around her like a serpent ready to strike but unsure. Then, something surged from the abyss. A figure began to materialize, shrouded in swirling darkness yet radiant as it broke free, a silhouette of a child, small and fragile, arms outstretched, hands trembling. "Tommy! Mommy!" His voice rang clear, cutting through the oppressive weight of the shadows. "Hold on, I'm coming." Sarah stretched out her hand. But as she moved forward, the shattered whispers transformed. 1,000 voices now screamed in rage, drowning out her son's call. They pushed and pulled at her, tightening their grip as the shadows solidified, crawling up her legs, constricting her like a vice. She gritted her teeth, forcing her brain to muster clarity through the chaos. If that presence was Tommy, then Lily could be here as well. "Lily!" she shouted, her voice fierce against the howling mass. "Mommy! Don't leave us!" A surge of warmth bloomed within her chest, transforming fear into courage. She clawed at the darkness, fighting it back, gritting her teeth against the shrieks as they grew louder, almost mocking. The altar's pulsing heartbeat quickened, urging her to take decisive action. With every ounce of her will, she began to chant loudly, repeating, "I claim you both. I claim my children back." The shadows recoiled, as if jolted by electric shock. A blinding light erupted from the altar, intermingling with the mass of darkness in a cataclysmic clash. The air crackled as the two forces fought against each other. Weird shapes twisted and writhed, and she could almost see faces contorted in agony, shadows writhing like wriggling worms in a fierce storm. Then, a sharp clarity sliced through the chaos. "You cannot take them!" Sarah shrieked, her voice imbued with energy, passion, and newfound strength. "They are mine!" The ground beneath her jolted violently, and she could feel the shadows beginning to unravel, her connection to the light growing stronger. But at that moment, a terrible realization struck her. If she pressed forward, she could free her children, but what might she unleash? The vortex roared, a hunger that echoed through the night, shifting and blending with the very essence of fear. As the last remnants of darkness dissolved into shimmering dust, she felt a breath of hope, but at what cost? Could she endure whatever awaited her when she reached beyond the veil? Would she save them, or had she summoned something much more ominous into their fragile world? A chilling breeze swept through the clearing, and in the heart of her desperate thoughts, she heard an unsettling laugh. "Come find us," it taunted, echoing into the void. Sarah froze, heart pounding in her throat. The shadows may have receded, but their laughter lingered, sinister and predatory. What lay ahead in the darkness? Would she truly find her children? Or had she unwittingly opened a door she could never close? With the echoes of that haunting laughter still thrumming in her ears, Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her. The light from the altar pulsated, bathing the clearing in a sickly glow, casting long shadows that twisted unnaturally. The atmosphere crackled with residual energy, as if the very air was charged with tension, waiting for something to break. "Tommy! Lily!" She cried out again, her voice trembling yet resolute. She could not be still. Her children needed her. She could almost feel them, their warmth stirring the cold breath of the night. She took a deep breath, pushing through the tightening anxiety that wrapped around her heart like a vice. As she moved cautiously toward the altar, she noticed the dust left by the vanquished shadows was swirling slowly, forming familiar shapes. Were they faces? She squinted, her mind grappling with the remnants of dread. The deeper she stared, the more she recognized those distorted features, the anguished visages of the forgotten, those who suffered before her, drawing her into their solemn whispers. Sarah, one voice croaked, each word dragging like a weight through the air. Help us, don't let them take you too. Shivers danced down her spine. The voices were pleading, yet there was an underlying current of menace. She gritted her teeth, trying to tune them out, focusing on her children. She had to keep moving. Inch by inch, she reached the altar, feeling its cool, slick surface beneath her palms. For a moment, it felt solid, a lifeline forged in desperation. The light flickered above her, casting erratic shadows that seemed to crawl. But then the altar trembled violently again, and a throaty growl came from the darkness. From her peripheral vision, something shifted. A flicker of movement caught her eye. The light began to falter as tendrils of darkness snaked toward her, palpable and hungry. Panic flared. With every ounce of strength, she pressed her palms harder against the cool stone, willing it to provide answers. Tell me how to save them. Please, she implored, a raw edge of fear cracking her voice. Suddenly, the shadows surged, enveloping her completely, swallowing her into their depths. She gasped, the darkness wrapping around her like a shroud, her breath quickening. The whispers turned into screams, an orchestra of despair that echoed in her mind. Each voice was a scream of someone who had fought and failed. You cannot win, Sarah, they screeched. They are already ours. No! She shouted, her voice slicing through the chilling darkness. They are mine! With that declaration, the darkness recoiled around her. The shadows writhed, every contour pulsing with malice. But something unexpected happened. From the depths, a flicker of light began to shimmer, a tiny speck that pulsed to the rhythm of her heart. It grew, expanding like a small flame amidst the mounting chaos. Sarah felt a tether inside her, a connection that surged with energy and hope. I will fight for them, she yelled, clenching her fists. The surrounding shadows hesitated, caught in their own conflict between the dwindling light and encroaching dark. Her resolve solidified. She dug deep into her memories of Tommy and Lily. Their laughter, their tears, their hopes, they were life itself. She felt them pulling her toward the warmth that flickered, their strength feeding her courage, defying the shadows that would see them torn apart. Tommy! Lily! I'm coming! She cried, determined to shatter the veil of darkness that threatened to ensnare her. Then, breaking through the tumult, she saw a glimmering path of light stretching outward, beckoning her forward. But it danced just out of reach, slippery and elusive, as if anticipating her every move. Each step toward it sent a tremor of uncertainty down her spine. Could they really be waiting at the end? Or was she being led into a trap designed to ensnare her soul? As she reached for the light, the shadows writhed violently, a furious cacophony erupting behind her. The altar beneath her shuddered again, as if protesting her defiance. Find us before it's too late, came the whispers, each more urgent than the last, sending shudders racing over her skin. What darkness awaited her on the other side? And would her children be truly free, or had she only intensified the threat? The light flickered, and Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the rush of adrenaline heightening her senses. She had to make her choice now. As the shadows writhed behind her, she hurtled into the light, the world behind her collapsing into chaos. Would she be welcomed through or dragged back into despair? The moment Sarah broke through the light, a jolt surged through her, an electric shock that stung her skin and sent alarm bells ringing in her head. She stumbled, not quite ready for the sudden shift in reality. The ground beneath her was warm and solid, a stark contrast to the chilling void she had just escaped. Breathless, she scanned her surroundings. The clearing now felt different, infused with an unsettling tranquility. Strangely vibrant flowers bloomed at her feet, their colors stark against the dark, twisted trees that ringed the clearing. Birds sang sweet yet haunting melodies above, but the harmony felt warped, off-key. Something was wrong. Tommy! Lily! She shouted again, her heart pounding like a war drum. She could sense them, but were they near or far, alive or lost? A sliver of movement caught her eye. In the distance, a figure emerged from the shadows, ragged and frail, skirting the edges of light. As it drew closer, Sarah's heart raced. She could barely breathe. It was a woman, no, a girl who looked familiar. Lily? Sarah's voice trembled, hope clashing with fear. The girl's vacant eyes met Sarah's, but they held nothing but darkness. "They're coming," she whispered, her voice a dry crack, like leaves crumbling underfoot. "You have to hide. They will take you just like they did Mom." The girl's mouth twisted into an unspeakable expression, one of grief and terror. Panic clawed at Sarah's throat. "No! I'm here to save you, to save Tommy." Lily backed away, her movements slow and unsteady. "You shouldn't have come here. It's not safe, not anymore." With that, the shadows began to seep back into the clearing from behind the trees, creeping like smoke. Sarah felt a deep chill seep into her bones. The comforting light she had chased was dimming, giving way beneath the weight of encroaching dark. The air became thick with feeling and overwhelming dread that coiled tightly in her stomach. "Stay back!" Sarah shouted, taking a step toward her daughter, desperate to breach the widening gap. "Come to me!" But shadows swirled as if they possessed a mind of their own, snaking toward her, their intent palpable. The haunting laughter rose again, louder this time. It was mocking her, an unholy symphony that echoed through her very soul, pushing her away from the innocence she clung to. Suddenly, a new sound broke through the unmistakable laughter of a child. "Mommy!" Sarah's breath hitched. It was Tommy. Panic washed over her, as she spun in search of the boy's voice, heart racing as another tendril of darkness lunged toward her. "They're coming!" Lily repeated, her eyes wide with unfathomable fear. "Mom, please!" The shadows burst forth, sweeping around Sarah like a living wave, and in that frantic moment she finally understood. They weren't simply seeking to drag her back into despair. They were hungry for her light, her hope, her very essence. "Stop!" Sarah screamed, fury igniting within her. With a swift motion, she raised her arms, drawing from that flickering warmth inside. "Not my children!" The shadows hesitated, but only for a moment. They pulsed angrily, flaring in response to her defiance. "Mommy!" Tommy shouted again, his voice close now but mingling with the unsettling whispers of the dark. Sarah felt the ground tremble beneath her feet, and the trees seemed to lean closer, their branches stretching like skeletal hands. But as her resolve hardened, her memories with Tommy and Lily surged within her, days spent laughing in the sunlight, bedtime stories shared under quilted warmth, every moment they fought together against fear. "Show me where they are," she demanded fiercely. Then, a ripple of light appeared between the encroaching shadows, a glimmer, smaller now but true as ever, beckoning her toward a new direction. "Mom, hurry!" Tommy's voice trembled on the edges of her consciousness. Was it a trick? Would following this light lead to her demise? With a final glance at Lily's haunted visage, Sarah made her choice. She dashed forward, her feet pounding against the ground, pushing against the shadows clawing for her. "Hold on, kids! I'm coming!" she screamed, her heart swelling with resolve. But behind her, the whispers grew louder, each word a promise of despair. "You'll never escape, they will take you too." As she sprinted towards the light, a cold shadow loomed large right at her back. Desperation surged within her veins, but the question remained, would the light lead her to her children or to oblivion? Just ahead, the darkness surged, ready to swallow her whole. What if she was running toward the very end of hope? Would she find Tommy and Lily, or would it all be a cruel illusion created by the very shadows she fought against? The moment Sarah lunged towards the flickering light, a sharp, biting wind whipped around her, tearing at her clothes and skin. It felt alive, a force that thrummed with menace. The darkness howled behind her, a chorus of tortured sounds that clawed at her sanity. She could almost hear a faint echo of Tommy's laughter swallowed by the unyielding void. "Stay with me!" she yelled, pushing her legs to run faster, desperate to reach the warmth of hope. The glimmer danced ahead, so close, yet so far, as if it were teasing her. The shadows writhed and whispered, filled with words she couldn't distinguish but felt in her bones, promises of despair, threats of loss. "You're not going to take them!" she shouted, her voice cracking. She had to believe in the light, in the possibility of finding her children. Thoughts of their faces, innocent and smiling, ignited a fierce determination within her. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath her feet. A shadow detached itself from the mass behind her, a hulking figure, darker than the night around it, growing in size as it approached. The laughter of children warped into shrieks, echoing in her ears, mingling with the rattle of branches like a death knell. "Sarah! That's not them!" Lily's voice pierced through the chaos, desperate and urgent. "You have to stop. They'll trick you." But the light pulsed again, a steady beacon now, and Sarah couldn't stop. She felt its warmth begin to penetrate the dread that encased her heart. "I'm coming!" was all she could manage, forcing herself forward. Each step felt like wading through thick fog, as if the shadows were latching onto her limbs, trying to pull her into their suffocating grip. "Mom!" The call came again, inflamed with hope but tinged with fear, as if Tommy sensed the looming threat. It spurred her on, filling her with fierce resolve. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here," she called, even as she felt the darkness coil around her feet, dragging her down. Then, just as she thought she could break through, the shadows surged forward, tumbling over one another, a tide of despair that threatened to engulf her entire being. "Wretched soul!" A voice rasped from within the mass, powerful and ancient. "Do you think you can defy us? This belongs to us. Their essence is ours." Every part of Sarah trembled at the sound, thick like sludge yet cutting like glass. It pierced the illusion of safety she fought to wield. "No!" she screamed, the word tearing from her throat. In that moment of desperation, she reached inside herself for the warmth she had harnessed before. "Not my kids! Not today!" The shadows hesitated again, this time as if recoiling from the fire she conjured. But she could feel the strain within her, the light flickering like a candle in a storm. "Focus!" she urged herself. Memories of laughter, of hugs, of fleeting moments wrapped in sunlight. They pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, fueling the fire within her. She charged ahead, stumbling into the light at the clearing's edge. The shadows writhed and screamed, thrown back momentarily as she crossed the threshold. But as she finally burst into the light, it wasn't the sanctuary she had hoped for. Instead, it revealed a twisted tableau, Tommy, tied to a gnarled tree, terror etched on his tiny face. And nestled beside him was Lily, a ghost of her former self, eyes wide and brimming with sorrow. "Mommy!" Tommy cried out again, but the shadows shrieked, reaching for them desperately. From within the light, Sarah felt a flicker of hope, battling a rising tide of panic. Shadows clawed at her, pulling her away from her children as she fought to draw closer. "I'm here! I'm not leaving you!" But in that moment, she sensed the crushing weight of betrayal. What animosity brewed within her children, what price had they paid? The light flickered ominously as the darkness grew thicker, pushing against her like a dam ready to break. And then, a revelation struck. It wasn't just about hope or fear. Something darker loomed behind the veil of light, something waiting for its moment to seize everything she cherished. "Mom!" Tommy screamed, but the shadows grew ravenous, eager to devour. Would she reach them in time? Or was it all part of the plan to draw her in closer, to snatch her soul away forever? As she lunged forward, reaching out for them, the shadows surged towards her with a deafening roar. What she truly faced now was a choice: embrace the light or succumb to the dark. Would the decision she made save her children, or doom them all to darkness? The shadows pressed closer, swirling like a storm. Sarah felt their icy fingers wrap around her, drawing her towards the abyss just beyond the light. Panic surged as she fought them. "No! I won't let you take them!" She stumbled, breathless, heart pounding like a war drum. The sight of Tommy and Lily pushed her to fight harder. They were counting on her. They needed her. "Hold on! I'm coming!" she cried, reaching out, her fingers brushing against something solid. But it wasn't just the trunk of the tree, it was a thick, sticky web, alive with the energy of despair. Everything felt wrong. Sarah's heart sank as she realized the shadows weren't just trying to drag her down. They were ensnaring her children too. Lily's eyes blazed with a mixture of hope and pain. "Mom," she whispered, the words barely breaking past her lips. "Don't let them win." Suddenly, a thunderous roar filled the air, shaking the ground beneath her feet. The roots of the gnarled tree writhed, crawling like serpents. "You're too late!" The ancient voice thundered, a cacophony of laughter intermixed with wails. "This is your end, Sarah." "Stop!" Sarah screamed, and with every ounce of strength she had left, she forced herself to push against the shadows. The warmth deep within her flickered again, igniting a fire that shot through her veins. Memories surged forth: Timmy's first steps, Lily's joyful giggle, family road trips filled with laughter. It fueled her resolve. The light pulsed, brighter now, pushing against the darkness. "I won't let you hurt them." She could see it, the darkness writhing away from the light, but it was a feeble push. The shadows rallied, roaring with a deafening intensity. Tendrils of darkness lunged toward her, hungry for her despair. Each scream threatened to drown her resolve, filling her with doubt. Tommy cried out, trapped, terrified. "Mom!" She clawed through the web and reached out again, feeling the warmth of her children's presence. It was an anchor, a lifeline. As her fingers clasped around the ropes binding Tommy, a surge of power coursed through her. She felt the shadows recoil, confusion rippling through them as though they sensed the change. "Hold on," she urged, trying to weave a protective barrier of light around her children. She pushed, drawing from the brightest moments of her life, but the shadows snapped back, furious and relentless. The gnarled tree began to vibrate, shaking violently. The ground roared beneath her. "Your love cannot save them," the voice shrieked. "Not from this fate." But she wouldn't stop. With a primal scream, she pulled Tommy free, his little body tumbling into her arms. "Lily! Grab onto us!" Just as if the world paused, the shadows thrashed. The light flickered but held strong. Lily lunged, arms outstretched, but the pull of darkness was too powerful. Blackened tendrils shot from the ground, ensnaring her waist, holding her back. "No!" Sarah's voice sliced through the air. Fear gripped her heart as she felt the darkness consuming Lily. "Let go of her!" In that moment, everything shattered. The veil between worlds thinned. Sarah saw what lay beyond the horrific reality of souls trapped, unwittingly crying out for help eternally. Was this their fate too? Driven by love and terror, Sarah opened herself completely to the glow of the light, pouring every shred of strength into a singular, unyielding truth: love always conquers darkness. A blinding flash erupted. Shadows screeched, retreating as if burned alive. But it wasn't just the darkness that fought. This was a war of wills, and Sarah was battling for her children's very souls. "Stay with me," she cried, her heart racing, choking on the dark laughter that echoed around them. Then she felt it, the tether to her children starting to crack. The last strand of light flickered. Would she be able to save Lily in time? Or would the shadows claim her first? The pulse of darkness hung heavy, waiting for her answer. Pressure surged through her chest as she gripped Tommy tight. The shadows coiled, hissing and writhing, clawing for any weakness. "Mom!" Tommy's tiny voice reached her, but it felt distant, muffled by the chaos surrounding them. Another pulse of light flickered in her mind, a desperate hope she clung to. "I'll get us out," she shouted, willing the light to answer. But the darkness roared back, hungry, ravenous. It clawed at her legs and wrapped around her wrists, trying to pull her down into oblivion. "Let her go!" The voice erupted from the tree, a guttural sneer. "You think this fight matters? Love? Hope? It means nothing here. You're too weak." The roots of the tree crunched beneath her feet, splintering into a mountain of gnarled wood. Frantic, Sarah turned her head and reached towards Lily, still ensnared. "Fight, Lily! Just reach for me." The shadows grabbed Lily's arms, pulling her deeper into the dark center of the tree where a pit of despair awaited. Lily's face twisted in fear, yet a flicker of determination shone through her tears. "I want to let go, Mom." Sarah could feel their bond, fraying yet unbroken. "Keep believing. Do you hear me?" She channeled every beautiful moment she could recall, allowing visions of family and joy to surge through her heart. The laughter from a summer picnic, the warmth of bedtime stories, the sweetness of a first kiss. With each memory, a radiant beam shot outward, illuminating the void. The shadows recoiled again, shrieking in agony, fluttering like moths dancing too close to a flame. She stepped forward, mind swimming with hope. But even the light wavered as their strength was tested. "This can't last," the shadows hissed, weaving new tendrils, thicker and more suffocating than before. "You'll tire. You're alone." "No!" Sarah's voice rang out, defiant. She surged forward despite the darkness clawing at her surfacing doubt. "I'm not alone." Tommy's grip tightened around her waist as if he sensed the shadows twitching with uncertainty. "We're a team. Together," he yelled, darting forward to grasp Lily's hand. The dark tendrils continued to drag them into the tree, but as their fingers connected, a surge of blinding light erupted thick and pure like sunlight breaking through a storm. "Now!" Sarah roared. "Together, we break free!" In that moment, she felt it a snap, a shattering movement as warmth filled her stomach. The shadows screeched, a thousand voices wailing in frustration. The ground trembled violently as roots exploded upwards, uprooting themselves from beneath the surface, creating a hailstorm of fury. Her heart raced as they were lifted, suspended in a protective bubble of light that glimmered around them. "Keep holding on," she urged as the shadows reared back like a monstrous serpent, desperate to claim its prey. Lily looked to her mother, eyes wide. "What if it's not enough, Mom?" Sarah's heart sank a fleeting doubt but also a fierce determination. "It has to be. We're worth fighting for." With one final push, the barrier of light flared brilliantly. The shadows screeched in unison, a furious roar echoing around them. Suddenly, the tendrils cracked and splintered away, freeing them from the darkness's grasp. But as they hovered, a chilling realization paralyzed Sarah. Beyond the tree's destruction, a deeper darkness loomed. A figure emerged from the shadows, aglow with shimmering malice, its eyes burning like coals. "Foolish mortals, this battle is far from over." Sarah's breath caught as dread filled her. Who was this new threat? And what evil did it bring? They had escaped one horror, only to face an even greater one. The urgency of the moment surged around them, oppressive and cold. "Run!" Sarah shouted, desperation clawing at her throat. They had no choice now. The true fight for their lives had just begun. Would they survive this new encounter, or would darkness finally claim them all? The eerie calm was shattered as Sarah, Tommy, and Lily broke free from the tendrils of shadow, but the threat behind them was far from vanquished. The monstrous figure stepped forward, its form swirling with darkness, radiating the kind of malevolence that seeped into Sarah's bones and squeezed her heart with a cold savor. "You think you can abandon this realm? You belong to the darkness now." The voice curled around them like smoke, slippery and sinister. "Run!" Sarah shouted, adrenaline propelling her. The air was electrified with urgency, and she seized her children's hands tighter. They darted toward the thinning light, the ominous figure trailing behind, a specter of despair determined to drag them back into the shadows. As they sprinted forward, the forest began to twist and turn, trees warping and shifting, creating a maze of darkness that betrayed their path. The shadows clawed at Sarah's back, gnashing with hunger, whispering promises of hopelessness. She could feel the malevolence pressing down like a weight, urging her to give in. "Not today!" she cried, pumping her legs faster. "We are stronger than this." With every shout, she fueled her resolve, drawing from her love for her children. Tommy's small body surged with energy beside her, his face a mask of fierce determination. "Keep going, Mom! We can do it!" he yelled, a beacon of unwavering hope cutting through the dread. They rounded a gnarled tree, and Sarah caught a glimpse of a clearing ahead. A flickering glow beckoned them a faint promise of salvation. But behind them, the anguish of the shadowy creature echoed into a roar. You cannot escape me. I feed on your fear. You belong to the stars of never-ending night. They broke through the treeline, stumbling into the clearing. The warmth of the dying light wrapped around them like a quilt, cradling their hopes. But it was fading, struggling to hold against the dark that surged behind. Stop! The false command echoed through the air, shaking the very ground they stood upon. Fear twisted in Sarah's stomach. What does it want? She thought frantically, her heart racing. Mom! Lily urged, pulling Sarah toward the pasty light. We have to reach it. They dashed forward, feet pounding against the earth, but the darkness was quick on their heels, whispering hateful promises, taunting her resolve. But Sarah refused to succumb. With a deep intake of breath, she pivoted to face the encroaching tide of shadows. You don't control us, she cried, amplifying the conviction in her voice, her body growing firm. The shadows wavered, momentarily confused by her defiance. Foolish woman! You think you can command the cosmos? The figure bellowed, dark energy swirling violently around it like a storm. You've only peeked into the real darkness. What do you think fuels your light? It's love! Sarah shot back, feeling the truth of it reverberate within. And that light is stronger than anything you can wield. With every ounce of her strength, Sarah began to channel all the moments they treasured as a family, sparkling memories of laughter, joy, and togetherness. It started in her chest, radiating through her limbs and erupting out like a sunbeam. Her children stood firm beside her, their tiny hands clutching hers like lifelines, adding their love to the energy that pulsed into the light. An explosion of blinding light surged to life, illuminating the clearing, ripping apart the shadows like paper. The dark figure staggered backward, shock painting its monstrous face, uncertainty shimmering in its coal black eyes. No! It screamed, rage and fear mingling, palpable in the air. But Sarah pressed forward, pulling her children close, channeling every good memory into the fight. Together! She shouted, feeling the light blaze to life around them. The shadowy being lunged, its visage morphing into grotesque shapes, contorting and shifting as if it were unable to comprehend the pure power of their love. You think you can win? It thundered, trying to drown her resolve in its dark symphony. Yes. Sarah's voice rang out, steady and resolute. We refuse to be afraid. The light burst forward, spilling like molten gold, enveloping the monstrous figure, consuming it. Shadows screamed, shrieks of lost souls echoing through the air. The darkness twisted and struggled, but it couldn't withstand the brilliance of their unity. With a final pulse, as bright as the sun, the shadows were cast aside, and the figure dissipated into 1,000 glimmering sparks, scattering like ashes into the breeze. Sarah, Tommy, and Lily stood together at the center of the blinding light, trembling yet unbroken, having faced down darkness with their light and come out victorious. For a heartbeat, silence reigned in the clearing, the air lightened, a gasp of fresh, pure air filling Sarah's lungs. The shadows retreated, their whispers lost to the night. She felt a warmth envelope her. They were safe, for now. But as they gathered themselves together, Sarah held her children tightly. A deep realization washed over her. They were forever changed, marked by the remnants of darkness they had faced. A weight settled in her heart. This battle might end here, but the scars would remain, a reminder of their strength and the love that had guided them through. Let us go home, Sarah said softly, leading her children toward the edge of the clearing, a faint light emerging in the distance, a path back to safety. As they moved away from the shadows, she felt hope curling once more within her, stronger than any fear. And perhaps it was this hope that would keep the shadows at bay. But for now, they emerged united, the forest behind them a silent witness to the resilience of love over the darkness. As they walked hand in hand toward the unknown, Sarah knew this battle had forged them anew. They would carry that light into the world, illuminating every corner of darkness together. Always. Now that you've witnessed this gripping conclusion, here's what you must do. Subscribe immediately to catch our next exclusive stories that will blow your mind. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. We need your support. And don't just sit there. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this wild ending. Finally, instinctively share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.